Hi there, my name is Aaron Short. Welcome to my
Yeah.
YouTube channel. How you doing there? Great to see you. We've got 5 people here already. Please do me a favor and share this around with your friends, especially your guitar playing friends. I'd really appreciate it. Today is April the 28th, and I'm very lucky to be joined by the one and only Teja Gerken. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great. Thank you. Thanks for having me on the show.
Thank you so much for being here because we had Doug Young on last week, and I remember I said to
I
him,
saw the show.
you were
Yes.
here watching, right? In fact, that's where I invited you
Right.
on. And
Right.
I watched him over the years on YouTube. He's one of the first kind
Right.
of YouTubers I ever watched. And you were also on these videos as well. So we'll talk about that today and also show off some of your impressive guitar
Right.
collection.
Absolutely. And I go way back.
Yeah, it'd be great. Everything guitar. So let's get straight into
Yeah.
it. Everyone in the chat, thanks for joining us. Please share and please ask any comments and questions as we go. Really appreciate you being here. And we'll start off with the question I ask everybody, which is, where are you from originally and what first got you into music?
Well, I was born and grew up in Germany, in Essen, Germany, kind of in the Ruhr area, and I got into music because my dad played guitar, and he had some friends that played guitar. So I got my first guitar. I think it was like 6 or 7 years old, and my dad showed me some chords, and that was kind of that for quite a while. And then when we moved to Munich, when I was about 12 or 13, to not to the city of Munich, but near Munich in Bavaria, and I started taking some classes at this really great little community music school in Munich, and that's kind of where I first started getting into finger picking and that kind of stuff. And then my family moved to California in 1986 when I was in high school, and at that point. I became more interested in it, and I found a couple of great teachers, and started taking more regular lessons, and got into playing electric guitar, a little folk guitar, and stuff like that. So that's kind of the beginning. So from Germany to California, and really through my dad at first, and his friends, and then a couple of great teachers.
Mm. I wanted to ask you about that. How is it? I mean, I moved from London to New York City.
Right.
How was it
hmm
moving from Europe to California? How did you feel about that?
Well, I mean, I was a teenager, and we had friends in that area that we moved to up here in Northern California, actually a small town called Mendocino, and so I was pretty familiar with the area. We had friends there, and it was kind of exciting. It was kind of a different life, but it was good. It was good.
Oh, that's awesome. So,
I went to a great little high school up there, and
and how was the guitar playing out there? Like,
so yeah. Well, I had a lot of friends in high school that played some guitar, and that's kind of, how I got a little bit more interested in it. And I found a great teacher a guy named George Quinn, and I took lessons with him for a couple of years before I went to college, maybe from when I was 16 to 18. I totally lost track of the guy, and I recently found him on Facebook. And a couple of years ago, he lives in Santa Barbara, California now, and when I went to the Santa Barbara Guitar Festival a couple of years ago, we met up, and I hadn't seen him in 25 years, so that was a ton of fun. And now we see each other on Facebook and stuff. He's still a great player and great teacher.
that's awesome. Speaking of Facebook,
Yeah,
I mean, Facebook is how we connected. And I noticed today
absolutely.
when I shared this stream,
Yeah.
our mutual friend Evan Gluck left a comment.
Yes, of course. Yeah, I told him we would commiserate about Evan. No,
um,
Evan, of course, is. It sounds like you've been using his guitar repair services. He's one of the finest guitar repair guys on the scene, really. So you're
yeah.
lucky to have him nearby.
Actually, he asked me once not to put his name on my video, so sorry, Evan.
Okay, well there we go. So we're blowing it already.
Don't call
He
that
deserves
guy.
it, though.
Don't call that guy. Don't call that guy. If he's watching,
Right.
don't call that guy.
Yeah. No, we have a lot of mutual friends, and we hang out at NAMM and that sort of thing. So yeah, it's great.
Yeah, no, it seems to me it's a very small community. Doug and you and Evan and even Lloyd
Mhm.
Baggs was talking about how he's friends with Taylor Guitars and all these companies. It seems like a very
Absolutely.
small community especially in the acoustic world, right?
Well, I think that's one of the beautiful things about this. I hesitate to even call it an industry, but everybody does know each other. And I've been in it for, 20 plus years now. And Yeah, I mean, I've been on the sort of publishing and magazine side as well as the being an artist side of things. But not only does everybody know each other, but people share information, and I think that's really that's why it's become such a lively community. It's not unusual to hear, you know, um, of someone from Martin talking to someone at Taylor about some problem that they're having, and I think that sharing of information has made everybody become a stronger force in the industry, and it certainly made guitars a lot better.
That's actually a very interesting point. I hadn't even thought about that. Um,
Mhm.
I've been thinking about that with YouTube. Like now we're all streaming and
Yeah,
I'm calling
yeah,
my friends and how do you do this and what do you think? And they're calling me.
right,
How do I do that? And it definitely makes you
yeah,
stronger when you share the information. It's a good thing, I
yeah.
think. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. No, and I mean, like, I wrote this book on Taylor guitars a few years ago, and so interviewing Bob about the early days of Taylor, he keeps saying, well, I kept calling Jean Larrivee about how do you do this, how do you do that, and I think through that sharing of information, um, it was certainly a big thing for Bob Taylor back when he was in the very early days, because John was, he'd been building for like 5 years more than Bob had or something like that. Um, and I think that kind of continues all through the line of people sharing that information, whether it's luthiers, whether it's larger companies, and musicians as well. I mean, certainly we're pretty fortunate here in the San Francisco Bay Area that we have a pretty lively acoustic music scene and a finger picking scene, and we know each other, and we play gigs together, and we help each other out when we can.
That's really nice. It's nice when people support
Yeah.
each other. And along
Yep.
those lines, thank you for being here today. I really appreciate it.
No, of
Um,
course.
so let's talk about the first time I saw you, I think, was doing reviews, which is really interesting to me because I do reviews on this channel. You were
Right.
doing video reviews for Acoustic Guitar Magazine. So
Right.
how did you get that job?
Well, I started working for acoustic guitar in 1997. I had been working in a guitar shop in Petaluma, California, called Tall Toad Music. It's still there, and I had just I'd always liked magazines, even before I got into guitars. I was just always into magazines, starting as a kid, and so I started getting interested in what it would take to write for a magazine, and I'd done a little bit of writing. It was, I mean, late 90s. This is very early days of sort of news groups online and stuff like that. And I'd done a little bit of writing about some guitar topics, and I'd done a little bit of English-German translation work. And I had a friend, my friend Dylan Shora was the music editor for acoustic guitar at the time, and they had this job opening that they'd created this job for a gear editor, and he encouraged me to apply, and I did, and I interviewed with Jeff Rogers, who was the editor at the time, actually at the Healdsburg Guitar Festival in '97. And eventually they hired me as their gear editor, and I was there until 2013. So, I started as the gear editor, and then I think in around 2006 I became one of the senior editors. And yeah, so that was kind of what I did for a long time.
Yeah, and that's how I am. I'm sure other people know
Yeah,
from that as well. And now,
yeah.
so you left there to start Peghead Nation, right? That's where what you're
Peghead
doing now.
Nation. Well, yeah, I was there, like I said, for 17 years, and as most people realize these days, print publishing is not exactly in its heyday right now, and ultimately, I was laid off from the job, so I had to find something to do, and my two now partners and former co-workers at Acoustic Guitar, Scott Nygaard and Dan Gable, um, also left the company around the same time. So the three of us, it wasn't like this long planned thing, hey, let's all leave and start something new, but we all found ourselves sort of on our own, and we decided that we'd be better off if we joined forces. And we started Peghead Nation, and we're now in our sixth year, and it's going really well. With Peghead Nation, the focus for what we do is online lessons. So we have lessons for guitar, banjo, mandolin, fiddle, ukulele, upright bass. What am I missing? Did I say ukulele? Anyway, so it's a subscription-based lesson kind of a thing, but we also do a lot of instrument demos. I pretty much put a new one up every week, and we work with different partners in the industry, and we do some performance videos, and do a lot of different kind of things, all in a digital realm. So that's been a lot of fun, and it's been really satisfying.
Mm. Can we talk about the demos thing? Because I've got
Yeah.
several people here, like myself, are doing
Mm-hmm.
online demos and
Mm-hmm.
reviews.
Mm-hmm.
So you started doing. You're one of the first people that ever did this. So what are some of
Yeah.
the things you learned from doing that over the years? What advice would you give people that are reviewing and demoing gear now, and how have you seen it change over the years?
Well, I mean, I reviewed gear in print for many years before I ever did a video review, and I think ultimately the fundamental goal is the same. I think to me, it's not so much about finding out whether something's good or bad, but who is it for and who would benefit from this. And that to me is sort of the key, because when you review things a lot, and when you review things for a magazine or a website, it's not really up to you to choose the gear sometimes, right? You're working for a magazine, all the manufacturers send you stuff, so you can't really cherry pick and just say, okay, I only want to review these things that I really like. I'm a fingerstyle guitar player. There's a lot of guitars that I wouldn't personally play, but that doesn't mean that I can't understand who they would be good for, or what that kind of guitar would do for somebody. So rather than saying, well, this guitar just doesn't have the right kind of response for me as a fingerstyle guitar player, I can think about who this would be a great instrument for. Is it a great guitar for a flat picker? Is it a great guitar for a blues guitar player? So I've played hundreds of guitars. I've demoed hundreds of guitars. So you start to learn to kind of listen for the things that would really apply to different kinds of musicians. And the same really goes for sort of realizing what price range is this in? Is this a great value? Is this maybe not as as good as something that would be really expensive, but for whatever, $500, it's an amazing value. You have to realize that too. You can't compare. I think overall the quality these days is astonishing. I mean, it's very rare that you see major flaws in craftsmanship or anything like that, and that's really changed in the 25 years that I've done that. I used to, when I first started. Well, it goes back to when I was working in retail. I remember getting guitars sent to me at the shop that I had to send back immediately because they needed a neck reset, brand new. And I just haven't seen anything like that in a long time. I think everybody's quality has just gone up so much that there really isn't much to. Sometimes people think that we don't, or I don't, I'm not critical enough of the gear, but the truth is, it's really hard to find something really bad these days.
I'm just laughing because I talk with other YouTubers, and you start doing YouTube and you review gear, and you just go on to say, "Hey, I just bought this phone,
Right,
and I love it. You must
right,
buy one. I love it."
right,
And then you start to make it a platform where you review different gear, and then you might get
right.
sent something to review, and you have to decide, am I going to review this thing or not if I don't like it? So I had a chat with Larry Fishman once. He said he likes what I do with my
Right,
pickups because I'll say this pickup is good for this person.
right,
Okay, so that's basically what you're saying.
yeah,
But then I guess
right.
the thing is, do you want to be a demo guy or a review guy? Because they're kind of different things, aren't they? If you demo and say who it's for,
Well, yeah, I mean, I suppose if I was gonna really write something or demo something purely from my perspective, what it does for me as a player, yeah, maybe I would point out some of the things that don't work for me a little bit more. But ultimately, I do think that highlighting the things that do work about something is ultimately more important. We're not talking like, it's not life or death or anything like that with instruments. It's like,
it is to some.
There's no like warning label that need to be attached to guitars. So, but yeah, the other thing about doing online videos, once you get into the video thing, of course, you actually have to. You can't make anything up because the instrument is right there. So. Certainly being able to play it in a way that makes sense for it is a definite bonus. And with Peghead Nation, a lot of times, like if I'm reviewing a Dreadnought or real bluegrass guitar or something like that, I will also get my partner Scott Nygaard in to play the guitar. He's one of the finest flat pickers in the business, and so that really helps, is to get someone else in. It's like, this is what it sounds like when I play it. Let's listen to see what it sounds like with another really great player who just happens to be a totally different style.
Yeah, I've seen you do that. It works really well. So I've got to ask you though, have you ever had to review, you don't have to name anything, but you know what I'm going to say. Have you ever had to review something and you're like, I just don't like this. I wouldn't recommend it to my worst enemy. Have you ever had that situation?
Well, I think I can. Okay, so like when I was at the magazine, and we got a lot of different gear, from a broader range of gear than what I currently do at Peghead Nation. If something really was flawed and just wouldn't work, we would talk to the manufacturer and say, there's a problem here. And, most likely we would wait for them to send a replacement or something like that, because there's no point in just totally trashing something when there's obviously a flaw. So there's sort of that. Have I reviewed things that I don't like? Absolutely. I review things that I don't personally like all the time. But again, it sort of comes back to seeing, what is this thing that might have something for somebody.
Yeah, no, I agree. I guess a good reviewer can see the value in the whole thing and see outside the box and not just review it from their own perspective.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I guess another thing I would say about reviewing things, and this sort of comes back to your original question about people wanting to get into that, is it's really important to avoid a conflict of interest, which, if someone gives you a piece of gear to keep, that probably shouldn't be reviewed. At least not in something that's something other than your personal channel or something like that. If you're endorsing a piece of gear, you probably shouldn't be, writing about that in an independent magazine or something like that. It really should be left to someone, which is why I've never had any endorsement deals as a player. All the gear that I have, I buy, and so I think, if I did have endorsements, that would create a problem for this thing that I do all the time, which is reviewing gear.
But I'm just interested, like for the big magazines, and you don't have to answer this if it's too much, but do they get wined and dined by companies, and is that basically a part of like it's okay? So in the old days, a company would put a print in a magazine, right? And now they want their stuff reviewed to show it to people. So are they actually paying? Do magazines still get paid to do that?
Well, I think it depends on the magazine. At Acoustic Guitar, we had a pretty strong policy that we couldn't accept gifts from companies. We also would pay for our own airfare if we went to go see. Like we wouldn't let people invite us to. I mean, they can invite us, but we would pay our own way to get somewhere.
That's interesting, because the YouTube thing
and those kinds of things. Now, different magazines handle this, and different companies handle this in different ways. I have since gone to events that the companies provided the airfare for, and so it sort of depends. I think both things kind of happen with that. I think the wine and dine kind of a thing. This is the guitar world. Nobody has the kind of money that a lot of other industries have. This is not the kind of thing where, you review this guitar and we'll send you, on vacation for a week or something like that, or we'll buy you a BMW. It's just that the money isn't there. None of the companies. So it's probably a somewhat sensitive topic for some people, and I think that different magazines do handle it in different ways. But I've always tried to kind of stay clear of those kind of potential conflicts.
I just find it interesting because the YouTube thing obviously is always evolving, and I know people like myself that are trying to make a career from it. You don't get much from clicks, So some people, when they
Mm-hmm.
get a certain amount of subscribers, do charge for the reviews as part of their
Right.
time, which is fair enough. And I have a
Yep.
policy where I hate to do it, but if I get something to review and it's got a
Mm-hmm.
problem, I tell the company
Mm-hmm.
and I tell them,
Mm-hmm.
give me a shipping label, I'll send it back, send me the next one.
Right.
Because
Right.
I don't want someone to come back to me and say, well, I bought that off your recommendation and it didn't work.
Right.
So,
Right.
or even had any
Yeah.
kind
If
of issue.
something doesn't work, I mean, you sometimes wonder, well, have you, I mean, to kind of flip the coin, people wonder, well, do you get hot rodded gear, right? Do they cherry pick the gear that they send you? And there's no way for us to be absolutely certain of that. But I've certainly received things that definitely weren't cherry picked. And, you kind of wonders, like, really, they sent that? And, you have a conversation with them. I think there's nobody gains anything from sort of pulling one over a manufacturer and taking advantage of them, sending something that's no good and sort of dragging them through the mud because of that. I don't see the point of doing that.
I mean, why wouldn't they check it before they sent it to you? It wouldn't make sense if they didn't, really, would it?
Yeah, it wouldn't. But things slip through the cracks.
Yeah.
Things can happen in shipping. Who knows what can happen?
Yeah.
So I think having it be a two-way conversation is important. And I think if you do this long enough, people do respect your opinion and what you have to say about gear demos. I know for a fact that certain things that I've written about have been taken into consideration, and it's changed the way models are made.
Well, that's what reviews really are for. They're for feedback,
Yeah.
and a good company would take that feedback and bear it in mind for the next iteration.
Yeah.
Any company that gets upset that you've said something could be improved, that shows they're not willing to compromise with the customer. So I think what you do is incredibly valuable for everyone, and that's the way I try to do it as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, having said that,
so yeah, it's been.
Someone asked me last week. They said, "Right, you've reviewed this, and this. What do you actually take to a gig?" And I did a live stream where I said, "Okay, it's funny because the stuff I take to a gig I haven't reviewed yet because I've been reviewing other products for people, and I really should talk more about what I actually use." So, having said all that, if you had a gig tonight in a regular venue of yours, what is your go-to gear of choice right now?
In several months, when hopefully we'll be able to gig again, this is what I'll take. I'm kind of a creature of habit, and I've sort of had a very similar rig for a long time. My main guitar is, I have it right here. I have two main 6-strings. This is, I was showing you earlier when we were talking, is a custom shop Martin OM that Dick Boak, who you recently had on the show, helped me put together back in 2004. I have this, and then my other main 6-string that I use a lot is a Loudon 010, and this is 20 years old now. I have Baggs Anthem SLs in both of them.
I noticed that.
And they've been working really well for me. I have a third 6-string that I don't have here right now. That's a Taylor 712C. That's a 1994. That was really my first good steel string guitar. And that has a Fishman rare earth blend in it. And in some situations, I will specifically take that guitar because it has the magnetic pickup. And if I know I'm going to be playing somewhere really loud on a big stage, and maybe it's not a solo gig, but I'm accompanying someone else, that guitar and that setup is really hard to beat. It just really sounds great for that kind of thing. My basic rig, if I really par it down to almost nothing, is I use a Baggs Pair DI preamp and a Boss TU2 tuner. That's sort of, that's the bare minimum that I would take. I sometimes use an old Boss RC20 XL looper. If I'm playing like a long solo gig somewhere. I've been using the Baggs reverb pedal a bit, which I like. And sometimes I use the TC reverb pedal, the Hall of Fame, which actually for reverb I mostly use the TC, but I've been using the Baggs EQ pedal because it's a way to kick your EQ in and out with a foot switch, which is really useful because I use so many different guitars at a gig. So if I'm switching, let's say, between radical EQ settings, being able to just kick it in with a foot switch is super nice, and it has a notch filter built in too. So that's kind of a unique piece of gear that really works well for that particular purpose.
So you do use several pedals and things, yeah. What about an amplifier? Do you go straight to PA, or do you use an amp on stage?
It depends on the gig. If I need an amp, I have an AER Compact 60 that I like a lot. I've had it for
They're
15,
great.
maybe 20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have been using, for some gigs, one of the Fishman Loudbox Charge amps, the battery-powered one.
Yeah, they're good too.
Because it's really nice if you're playing like an outdoor wedding or something like that, to have something that's independent of a power plug. And that, I think those sound great, and they're so easy to use. So that's a really nice rig. The nicer the venue I play, the less gear I bring. Ideally, I like to play just through a mic. So if I'm playing somewhere where I know the sound guy, the sound person is going to be good, it's a good sounding room, and I have time for a sound check, I might just grab a guitar and go. I bring a C1000S and a AKG C1000S mic sometimes if I know I'm going to use a mic, because I like it as a live guitar mic. So it's kind of that. In the ideal scenario, it's great to just play with a mic and just really keep it simple. My situation is that I sort of play gigs that range from, every now and then, not very often, I get to play in that ideal scenario kind of a thing. A beautiful hall, great sound person, sound check and stuff. But it can go anywhere from there to, in the trenches with, a PA where I don't have control of the monitors, it's going to be too loud, that sort of thing. So I like having a system that I've sort of gotten to the point where, rather than hoping that I'll get the best sound some of the time, I want to get 90% of the way there all the time. And to me, sort of a good basic pickup and a good basic preamp. I mean, I said I'm using the Pair DI, but really any of the current preamp DI EQ boxes, whether it's the Fishman Platinum EQ or the Grace design units or the Tone Bone, they all do that job. So, I mean, that's really, when it comes to amplification. Now, you and Doug talked a lot about amplification the other day. The stuff has gotten so much better in the last 20 years. You can really take just about anything off the shelf, and it'll work.
Yeah, the new stuff is good, and I think Thursday we have James May, who's in the Bay Area, that created Tone Dexter. How do you feel?
Yeah.
I could go, and I'm sorry, I always drift into gear. I do love the whole gear thing, but how do you feel about the future? How do you feel about impulse responses and even like multi effects like Helix and things like that? Have you what do you think about that stuff?
I really haven't spent that much time with that side of things. I haven't really had an opportunity to demo a lot of that stuff, and I haven't really felt the need to use it myself, because I'm really quite happy with the sound that I'm getting, and I've spent so much time sort of trying out different things that now that I've settled on something that kind of works, I'm kind of tired of messing around with it. So I now have something that is grab and go. I can usually go to a venue, and within 5 or 10 minutes, I have a good sound, and I have happy sound engineers, and people tell me it sounds good. So that's that. Could I sometimes sound a little bit better? Probably. But would it take a lot more gear or a lot longer sound checks and everything? Yes. So I don't know.
More to plug in. I guess if you play fingerstyle and you play a lot of listening rooms where it's kind of quiet, then why not just use a microphone?
Yeah.
But if you have a louder room,
so I'm playing. I tend to play in situations that are relatively easy to do, with the exception of and it'll be a terrible PA, and it'll be really loud in there, and you just kind of have to go into combat mode. And again, having a preamp that has a notch filter, and to me, having some kind of tunable parametric EQ is totally key. Like on the Pair DI, you have the sweepable mids, and to me, that is really the key. I personally wouldn't use a preamp that didn't have that if I wasn't sure what the playing situation was going to be like, because you can use it. I don't use the EQ on my preamp so much to shape my sound, because I'm happy with my sound going flat. It sounds good, but you never know what the room's going to sound like, what the PA is going to sound like. So I'm really using it to compensate for that, and having that sweepable mid-range is just crucial for me.
That's a really good point for acoustic or electric players. You know, you want to EQ your system for
Yeah.
the room, and a lot of people don't do that, from what I've gathered. You know, that's
Right.
very, very important.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the Anthem too. I feel
So-
it's very robust and good. Actually, I was talking to someone today about it, and they were saying that they want to shape their sound a bit, so they should probably get like that DI that you have as well to do that.
Yeah, I mean, if you really want to shape your sound, then, finding a way to maybe put a graphic EQ in there too might be an easier way to do it. I mean, I kind of see the Pair DI, or, even a preamp like the Platinum Pro, the Fishman, which is very similar in control. It's really more like a Swiss Army knife. It's a problem-solving tool, not so much a tool that's like a pedal that you plug into and it makes you sound different or better. It's really a problem-solving tool. And sometimes you don't have problems, so you don't need it.
Yeah. No, I do think the Anthem is a great solution for those things.
Yeah.
Do you have any guitars? Here's a question. Do you have any guitars that don't have any pickups that you've decided I don't want to drill any holes or make any changes to?
I don't, because I use all my guitars at gigs, and so everything I have has a pickup in it. I mean, there are a couple of guitars that I just, whatever, I hang on to for sentimental reasons or something like that. But all the guitars that I use and play have pickups in them. I have, like I said, I have the Anthem Sl in 3 guitars. I have that Fishman Rare Earth in a couple of guitars, and for the right thing, that is really dynamite. It really sounds good. I have a Fishman Matrix in my classical guitar, and it sounds really, really good in that guitar. It's just the standard Matrix under saddle pickup, no mic. And I heard, do you know who Gian Riley is?
No.
He's actually in New York. He's a wonderful. He started out mostly being a classical guitarist, but he's an amazing composer, plays some electric guitar too now. His dad is Terry Riley, the minimalist composer, so he tours with him a lot. But I heard him play classical guitar in a club 15 years ago, so here in the Bay Area, and he sounded really good. And I said, "What do you have in that guitar?" And he said, "It's a Fishman Matrix." And so shortly after that, I got a really nice Kenny Hill classical guitar, and I didn't have a pickup in that guitar for a long time because I had another nylon string guitar with a pickup that I was using. But then I was like, I want to use my nice guitar. And so I put this Matrix in there. And here's one other thing that I think is kind of the elephant in the room. I think having someone install pickups that really knows how to install them and that's comfortable with that particular rig is key. Because there's no easier way to screw up a pickup sound than to not have it properly installed. And it can be trickier than it looks, too, especially with an under saddle pickup. The saddle has to fit just right. The slot has to be just so. So I've installed a lot of pickups myself, and I'm pretty good at it. But if it needs to be routed or anything, if I have any question about it, then I'll have someone. We have some great luthiers here in the Bay Area. My go-to guy is a guy named Alan Perlman. He's wonderful, and so he installed that in my Kenny Hill classical, and it sounds really, really good. And all it is the standard Matrix under saddle pickup. So that's been a great rig. I have this National guitar here. I think you can see that has a Highlander. It's a tricone, and that has a Highlander pickup in it.
Oh, right.
That pretty much describes it. I have one interesting setup. I have a Taylor 12-string. I don't have it right here. That Rick Turner put one of the very early D-tars in, and it's actually. It was before they actually released the D-tar, and it was the pickup that he was using in his Renaissance guitars, which ended up becoming the the Timberline guitar, and so he put that in, and it's a. I think I got it before it was even on the market, so it's like 20 years ago. And that system, it has the 18-volt system with the two 9-volt batteries, and it sounds really good in that guitar.
I'm trying to research the history of impulse responses and acoustic. Do you know? Was the Rick Turner Mama Bear the first impulse response device?
I heard you and Doug talking about that the other day.
Yeah.
I think that and the original Aura came out right around the same time. I'm kind of wondering whether the Aura might have been earlier even, but I don't know, because you remember the first box was co-developed with Akai, and it came out, and I don't know. And then there was a Yamaha unit too that was very early. I forget what it was called.
Yeah, the Yamaha, yeah.
So I don't remember exactly, but it was all within a year or so of each other, I think.
I'm researching that. I'd like to speak to these people and find out.
Yeah.
I need to get Larry Fishman on here. That'd be a good one.
Right. You should get Larry. Yeah, he's fun to talk to.
Yeah. Okay, so you're a fan of the Anthem, and that's good to know, because I recommend that pickup a lot too. It's a great all-round pickup. I forgot to tell Doug, I did try the Rare Earth Blend once, which was really good. Really good pickup.
Yeah, that's what I have in that guitar. And actually, I just demoed the new one, the Rare Earth Tap, I think is what it's called, with the and I might put that into my Taylor, because that was a really nice kind of control with that soundboard transducer that you don't get with the mic, and you still have all the sort of body sensitivity and stuff like that. So, especially since that's a guitar that I'm more likely to use in a high volume kind of situation, that's a pretty cool thing. But I like the Anthem, and it just worked, and so much of it is, to sort of develop a working routine with your gear. And I've heard so many people sound good with every piece of gear. My friend Jacques Stotzem in Belgium sounds amazing with a Fishman Matrix. He's got the system with the Matrix and the internal mic. I forget what they call it now. And he's using super light gauge strings on a Martin, like 10 gauge strings. And wow. It would be impossible for me to sound good with light gauge strings and an under saddle pickup. And he sounds amazing. So much about it is learning how to sound good with what you have.
Yes,
and,
I agree.
If it doesn't sound good, it might not be the gear. Let's put it like that.
It also depends how you play as well. If you play very lightly, a lot of things sound good. I was playing that Maiden behind me on my show Saturday night, my live stream, and I found that it just really, like, when you dig in, it just kind of almost naturally distorts and compresses, but in a nice way. It takes the hard strumming really well. So you've got to find something that works for the way you play as well. I agree. All right.
It depends the kind of sound that you're looking for. So there's so many different factors, but overall, it's gotten so good. It almost I'd say all the gear from the big manufacturers can be made to sound really good.
And even with
very different from 20 years ago.
Even with a basic pickup, you can now use a Tone Dexter or a Soundscape or even a Helix with impulse responses.
Absolutely.
There's so many. That's one of the problems now. There's so much gear. There's so many options. It's almost overloaded right now.
Yep.
Let's go to the chat and say hi to our friends that are watching. We have Daryl Ridgely says hello to you both. We have David, my friend David, who says I'm very close to the camera, so I just panned back slightly. Gary Roberts from Arizona, who also plays the Anthem in a cutaway HD28, which is a very nice guitar. I have one of those. Tone Wars, who plays Tone Wars plays metal, but we have the similar kind of conversations about gear, so I find that quite interesting.
Okay.
Patsy Smith. Hi, we've got Maury's Music, Maury Rutch from Maury's Music. How you doing?
Okay.
We've got Spoon Phillips here. You know Spoon, right?
I think so.
Yeah, he demos a lot of Martins with Maury.
Okay.
And Jason Carter, who is German.
Okay.
He's from Stuttgart. Stuttgart?
Stuttgart. Okay, yeah.
Stuttgart, sorry. He says, I hope you're doing good. And he says, where are you from originally in Germany?
I was born in Essen.
We switch you over here.
I just lost. I got an internal temperature.
That's me. I don't know why it's so hot here.
Good.
I don't know why it's so hot here today.
Okay.
It's just crazy. I don't know what's going on.
Okay. Well,
So
as long as you still see me.
they just
Okay.
see you
So
and they
I
hear
was
me.
born in Essen, Germany, and that's where I still have some family. It's up in the northwest. So
Ah, okay, great, great. Chad Boston
yeah.
gave us a round of applause. Thank you.
Mhm.
Alec Bourne is here, and
Okay, you gotta.
Jason is talking in German, but I don't. He says "Guten Abend,
Guten Abend. Yeah, of course.
Abend,
It's evening there.
Guten
Yeah.
Abend, Guten." Okay, we're getting some
Yeah.
German lessons here too.
Okay.
May Creative, who I met at the Loudon stand at NAM, and you have a Loudon, so
Okay.
that's a nice connection.
I do.
And he said
Yep.
he met you. He met you. Steve May met you at NAM this year. Very cool.
Okay. Yep.
Jason Carter says, yeah, which part of Germany? We answered that. Have you reviewed the Martin
Okay.
SC13E, that new Martin guitar?
I did. I
What
did.
did you think of that? What was the
Yes.
conclusion?
I went to the presentation at NAM and demoed that guitar. Um, you know, I have to admit I was a little bit um, skeptical at first. And again, I'm not the player that guitar is made for, and it's actually a perfect example of kind of taking something for what it really is for. And I'm not, a singer-songwriter or playing a guitar in a rock band or something like that who looks for that upper cutaway access and things like that. But I really liked the guitar. I actually thought it worked well as a fingerstyle guitar. It was super easy to play. And I think the technology with that new neck joint on it is very cool. I like the asymmetrical body shape of it. And, you know, Martin is such an interesting company in that they have, I mean, they invented the modern steel string guitar. And they have to continue making that, right? Because
Yeah.
everyone wants them to make the best Martin ever, myself included. And
Mm.
I love vintage Martins and everything, but obviously they have to look forward and they have to come up with ways to do something that is different. And I think this is a great example of really sort of putting their minds together and finding something that people want, something that is a need for, maybe even reaching a younger demographic
Mm.
than what Martin tends to reach, and coming up with a cool guitar that has a nice price point. It plays easy. It looks maybe a little bit less stuffy to someone who is not into the sort of traditional Martin thing, and again, sort of I went into that review thinking of myself, okay, I'm going to put my young singer-songwriter hat on and see what this might sound like. And I ended up playing it quite a bit at home and kind of liking the way it played and sounded myself. So I was positively surprised by that for sure.
Mm. Yeah, I love the fact that Martin are trying new things. I guess they have to, and I think
Yeah,
a lot of their customers do kind of like it happened with the Fender Acoustasonic. Oh, what are they doing? That's not a Fender. That's not a
yeah.
Martin. But they have to try new things, and it's good if they're gonna.
Everybody has to do.
Modern
Yeah.
players want an easy to play instrument, don't they? They want a low action. They want a cutaway. That's what modern players want, I think. So it makes sense.
Well, a lot of them do. And again, I don't want super low action.
Mm,
Because of the way I play, I use so many alternate tunings that
right.
my action has to be a little higher than most because otherwise I'm going to have string rattle. And I also think, if your action's too low, your tone really suffers. So I'm not one of those guys who goes to their tech. I don't go to Evan Gluck, for example, and say, make it as low as possible without buzzing. That's the famous line, right?
Yeah.
So I'm a little bit the exception. Now, of course, I don't like to have a guitar be really hard to play either. But people pick up my guitars, and it's not unusual that I hear something like, "Well, that action's kind of high," and that's by default. I mean, I like it that way.
I'm the same. I don't want it too low. I don't
Mhm.
want it too high.
Mhm.
It's a bit like I
Mhm.
always say to people, it's like when you go for a haircut and they say, "What do you want?" And you say, "I just want to
Right.
look good." And then a luthier will
Right.
say that, "What do you want?" I
Yeah.
just want it to be easy to
Well,
play but sound great.
if I played in one tuning exclusively, I probably would be able to have my action a little bit lower, especially if it was standard tuning.
Mm,
And for that matter, I sort of keep cycling back to that Taylor that I have, which that does have lower action than my other guitars because I'm more likely to play it in standard tuning at the kind of gigs that I will use it. But my main guitars, my Martin and my Loudon, I'll go from anywhere between standard tuning to something with a low C and a low G, and that's a big difference in string tension. That's really enough difference to have your neck move slightly. So your neck relief will literally be different if you're in a low C tuning or if you're in a standard tuning. And so you have to have action that's high enough to sort of go with that and compensate for that.
Yeah, totally. It's a challenging one to get it just right, and the neck relief and the saddle height, and you don't want to go too low. So I read in your bio it says you built a guitar in the past. So do you do your action yourself?
I do some of my I do basic setup work myself. The guitar building that I did back, I went to a small liberal arts college that is now defunct. It was called World College West, and it was up here in Northern California. And they had programs where they had the students study in a developing country for 6 months. And I went to Mexico. This is in 1989, and I lived and studied in the guitar-making town of Paracho, which is in the state of Michoacan. And it's a pretty amazing town. It's a village where literally, I'd say 80% of the economy is built around guitars. There's hundreds of different makers, and everything sort of revolves around the guitar. Unfortunately, in recent years, they've sort of been caught up in the whole drug war down there, so I'm really not sure what is happening there now. But I lived with a luthier. His name was Salvador Caro Salapa, and we built a guitar together that I still have. It's kind of a flamenca negra, and I can't really say that I built the guitar, but I was there with him while we built it and observed every step, and he would have me do little things and stuff. And I've been to so many luthier shops over the years. That was one of the great things about being an acoustic guitarist, that I would visit. I've been to every major manufacturer of guitars in the United States and some in Europe and Canada. And I've been to dozens and dozens, if not hundreds, of luthier shops. So there probably isn't anybody else who's been to as many guitar shops as I've been. And so you learn things just watching people work and being in the workshops and stuff. And so I'll sand a saddle and adjust the truss rod, maybe install a pickup if everything looks like it's going to drop in. But I'm not going to do fret work myself or really major kind of surgery. So like I said, I have my friend Alan Perlman in San Francisco. I'll sometimes use the guys down at Griffin Stringed Instruments in Palo Alto, who are also really good.
So what do you think of stainless steel frets and Evo wire? Do you use that, or do you use standard frets?
I have Evo wire on one guitar, my baritone, which I have right here, and I do like it. They don't. Last time I checked, I had both my Martin and my Loudon refretted last year, and I like a fret wire, and I forget what the Dunlop number for it is, but it's a very tall and very thin wire, and they don't make the Evos in that format. So we decided against it at the time. I do like it, and I might try it next time, because they make one that's pretty close to what I've been using. Maybe I should have just gone for it, but I like it. I mean, it certainly lasts longer. People say they hear a tonal difference, and I can't really comment on that because I haven't played two otherwise identical guitars. So there's that. I know a lot of people who like the stainless steel frets, and that's great too. So again, we have so many options now for different things. But again, one of the things is, if you have a guy or someone who you really like to work on your guitars, go with their recommendation. If they're good, they not only know what they talk about, they're going to do the best job they can do working with the stuff that they like working with, and that's going to be in your favor, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's funny because Evan says to me, I install the Matrix or the K&K, and that's it. I'm not putting anything else in your guitar.
Right. Right.
but I wanted to try all these pickups, so yeah,
Right.
I had to
Yeah.
twist his arm a
Yeah.
few times or get other people to do it
Yeah.
to try all these pickups.
Right.
But it's interesting. I just thought of a good question. What would you say? You've met all these luthiers. What about a beginner that buys a guitar and they
Mm-hmm.
say to someone, "Oh, it's hard to play," and what would you advise someone that needs to find a luthier and have their guitar set up? What should they say? What do you say to someone? Do you just say, "Can you make it as easy to play as possible?" What's the question that you should ask someone? Because it's such a subjective thing. What do you think a beginner
Right.
should do?
Well, I mean, ideally, you're going to buy your guitar in a shop where they can address that right there, right?
Right.
That is, I mean, to me, buying a guitar, especially as a beginner, there's really no better reason to go to an actual brick and mortar store than being a beginning guitar player, and not only knowing that that store's probably gone over the guitar before they put it on the hook, but that they'll also listen to you and be able to do something about it right then and there. Certainly, being able to say, I'm a beginning guitar player, and I struggle playing chords or whatever, and I want it easier to play. Can you put some lighter gauge strings on there, or lower the action for me? If the guitar already has light strings on it and already has the action as low as possible, then that's that. Maybe it's time to look at a guitar with a shorter scale or something like that. Again, I think, for a beginning guitar player, those would be some generalities to maybe talk about, but they'll need the help from someone who does know, and there's no better thing than a great shop for that.
That's a great point. That's a reason to buy from a really good local store,
Absolutely.
or even Sweetwater, where you can tell them what, but you have to know kind of what you want. Like I said, that's a reason, I guess,
Yeah.
not to buy from Amazon or something, right?
Absolutely, and then you still have to find someone to do the work if it does need it, and or get a second opinion or something like that. And again, I live here in the San Francisco Bay Area, where we have several really, really great shops, and quite a few very qualified guitar repair people, and so it's easy for me to say. But most areas should have a decent shop with some kind of repair department that can take care of something like that. Now, a more experienced player will probably have some more specific ideas about the setup they like. Like I said for myself, I like my action to be a little bit higher. I know that I like to have just a little bit of neck relief. When I get my guitars refretted, I like to have the fret ends be really steep, so I really maximize the width of the fingerboard, and I don't slip off with the high strings. So that's kind of a very specific thing that I'll tell someone who's going to refret a guitar for me, and something that I notice on some guitars that'll be a reason why I might not like playing that guitar so much if I slip off the high ends. And some people do kind of file the fret ends at a shallower angle than I like. Now, that's a very specific thing. It's not a make or break thing for me in general, but if I'm going to have a guitar set up, I might as well take that into consideration.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's something you have to learn along the journey. What do you like, and really think about that and take note as you go. We'll just go through the rest of the questions. David says he loves the details in his Turner Renaissance guitars. I keep slipping between British.
Yeah, it's a great pickup.
Keep slipping between British and American all the time. Maury said Timberline was the one that needs the saddle slot routed with a curve. Timberline?
Indeed, that's the one. Yep.
Okay.
It's similar to the Highlander pickup in that it's actually a round coaxial cable. And so, it's a trickier installation. And I actually don't know whether they still offer that pickup. In my case, Rick Turner himself put the pickup in. Oh, wow. So, nice. I had no worries about it there.
Yeah, it's nice when they can do it themselves. Steve May told me with the Loudon, it's got a split saddle. So Anthem, bags actually make an Anthem for a Loudon. Is that true?
Yes, that's what I have in mind, and that works great. Before I had the Anthem in there, I had the original dual source pickup in there, which used the ribbon transducer pickup. Right. And when I first put it in, my Loudon is 20 years old, and I put that in when it was new, and they didn't make a split saddle version yet. But Lloyd talked me through how to actually cut two pickups and solder them together in series. And I had that in there for 15 years or so, and then it started fraying right where I had cut it, and it stopped working. It shorted out, and that's when I switched over to the Anthem.
It's nice when you know the people personally and can call them up and say, "Hey, I got this thing," you know. But
yes, I mean, I'm very fortunate that I've made a lot of friends in the industry and have that option. But the other thing to remember, though, is these people are available. I mean, Lloyd might not answer the phone if you call LR Bags, but chances are, if you really want to talk to Lloyd about something, you can do that. And that's one of the great things about the acoustic guitar world, and that really doesn't only go for people in the industry as manufacturers, but all the people who are sort of my heroes in this world I've met, and many I've become friends with, and certainly even if I might not have their phone numbers at this point, they are accessible, and you can talk to people at gigs and whatever, and that's really one of the great things about this little universe that we're in, and that it's a pretty friendly bunch.
Yeah. I love it too. I remember going to NAMM and meeting like Larry Fishman and be like, "Oh wow, it's Larry Fishman."
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great thing.
It's nice, yeah. Of course, you go to NAMM and you meet everyone, but I always have to remember that they're there to do business, and I don't want to take up their time. But it is so great just to see them there and say hi and see what new stuff's coming out, and this has been even better, like to sit and chat with people for an hour, about even you and Doug and everyone. It's just like to get to know the faces you've seen so much is really great. I love that. I love that about the internet.
It's a great thing about this business. So, yeah.
Dal Ridgely, I used the Rare Earth blend. I'm very happy. That is a very great unsung pickup. I actually found it didn't have enough kind of bite because I want a little bit of that quack from the undersaddle when I strum. I thought it missed a little bit.
That is something. I mean, I sometimes when I am playing through a mic, I do kind of miss having a little bit of that punch that you get with a pickup, where you have that immediate response that can be really nice to have. So yeah,
that's why I like the Anthem. I noticed you use the Anthem SL. Is there a reason you don't use the full Anthem?
I had the full Anthem in the Martin, and I had a couple of issues with rattles in it, like something was rattling in the box, and I really only had it in one setting all the time anyway, and I was actually talking with Lloyd, and he kind of encouraged me just to try and SL in that guitar, and I had it in the Loudon already because I didn't want that much weight in the sound hole from the bigger controller, and I'm just really happy with it. Again, it's one less thing to have to make a decision about.
Well, the only reason I asked that is a lot of people on the forums say to me they're going to use that one because it's cheaper and it's smaller. But I personally do. I always want to put on record that I use the full one because with that one you can roll back to just undersaddle pickup, whereas the SL you can't.
That's the reason why I had it in originally too, and I kept it. Sort of comes back to that. What if I have one of those in the trenches gig where I just the monitors are blaring at me and I just need that undersaddle pickup and just to get through. That situation never happened. And so I'm totally fine with the SL now.
And it's interesting you say about the added weight. Like I don't personally have an issue with that or think it's really that much.
It's not a lot. It's not a lot, but there's also there's a few more wires inside because the preamp is right in that sound hole mounted unit, and so there's a couple more things that can rattle, and they're both great. But I'm happy with the SL.
Something that comes up on the acoustic. I don't know if you go on the acoustic guitar forum. It can be dangerous.
Every now and then I do. Yeah.
Something that comes up around every 6 months. I want to get your opinion on it. Do you think having the element, the soft undersaddle pickup in the guitar, reduces the unplugged tone at all?
It can. I wouldn't say it always does. Lloyd once told me something that really made sense to me, because I asked him about that back when the what was the pickup that had the rubbery coating on it. Forget what it was called now. But he pointed out that by the time the pickup is compressed under that saddle with the string tension, um, it's actually so compressed that it kind of hardens the material in a way because you're compressing it so much. Um, and I think there's something to that. Can it change the sound? I absolutely think anything will change the sound, right? I mean, everything you do on a guitar will change the sound in some way. Whether it's makes a big difference or not, it's hard to say. I think if you absolutely don't want to risk changing the acoustic sound of the guitar, maybe don't put a pickup in it. But do you want to use the guitar at a gig, or do you want to plug in at home? And I mean, how much does the guitar change in sound from when you put strings on to the same strings a week later?
Yeah, I agree.
How much does a different pick change the sound? There's so many factors to changing the sound that I think ultimately, I'm not one to. I mean, I like a great sounding guitar, obviously, but I think there is a level sort of nitpicking at what could be affecting that sound. That
I totally agree, because if you want to plug it in, and the funny thing is, I plug in 90% of the time anyway, so I'd be silly not to have the best sounding system that I can, because that's how I use it.
If you're gonna, I mean, all my guitars. I mean, people ask me, "Oh, do you take your nice guitars out to gigs?" Well, yeah. I mean, that's why I got them. I mean, that's kind of that, So yes, I take my nice guitars out. I know, when Doug and I play together, he takes his guitars out. That's kind of the whole point for me to have them. Now, when I play at home, unless I'm like figuring out something about my rig, or I'm trying out something, I never plug in at home.
Interesting.
I'm purely an acoustic player at home.
Interesting.
So there's that. I mean, I have to have a reason to plug in at home, but so there's that. I mean, the plugging in is really pretty much a performing thing. And I do, my favorite performing situation is a house concert with no amplification. Playing for 20, 30 people. With just no amplification at all. I think that's really lovely.
Again, it depends on the style of music you play, right? If you plug in off and need to do that. I'm just quickly, just tell us, did you ever try something like a K&K, like a very minimal passive soundboard transducer? Did you ever try that?
I have. I've never had one in a guitar of my own, but I've played lots of people's guitars. It sort of comes back to me for playing in so many different situations that a lot of times I find if things get too loud and I don't have control over it, it can get a little bit woofy for me. But I've heard other people sound really, really good. Like some of the best sounds I've ever heard have been, people using soundboard transducers. So again, they don't seem to really work for me the way I play or my guitars in some situations. Even though if I, set my mind to it and really kind of tweak the setup with that, I could probably make it work. But it's not really the route that I've gone down.
Yeah. David says, I just asked Rick Turner the question about the mama bear. I tagged you in it. Oh, he's on Facebook? Aha.
Oh, Rick is on Facebook. Yeah.
Okay, I'll be adding him later. Watch out, Rick.
Yeah.
I'll come for an interview for you. Oh my goodness.
You should have Rick on the show.
I'd love to. I'd love to. Yeah. That's the thing. I mean, again, you talk about the acoustic community being small. I never really. I've met Lloyd at NAMM and I've said hello to him, but to actually have people on here and just chat like this, asking the questions that are relevant to me. Right. To me, I know they're different for everyone, but having the people here watching along, I think it's a great thing for the community because you get to put faces to names. And even with you, like I didn't know much about your background, where you're from, and the whole story with the magazine, and I didn't know all that stuff. So I just love making that, like documenting that, and then tomorrow I've got.
There's a lot of people with interesting stories in this business,
and that's what you realize, that the stories, the connections, are what are so good. Even people that don't like music love the stories about how we get into this and the connections we've made. It's quite fascinating, I think.
Absolutely.
David said, are you using an old Zoom H2N for your microphone?
I am. I have it right here. It's kind of funny, because I'm sort of left with the gear that I have here at the house because most of my better mics and cameras and gear is at the Peghead Nation studio, which is a couple of towns over. And right now, with as long as we're sheltering in place, I can't really go there. So I've got a Zoom H2 that I'm using as a little USB mic right now. And I've been using it, I've been shooting a few little things that I put on Facebook and my YouTube channel, and I'm actually kind of surprised by how good a sound I'm getting on my guitar with just that little mic for video stuff. So yeah, it's a nice little unit.
We're all making do, and that's good. It's good that we can do what we're doing, really, right? Hi, Edward Sparks. How you doing? He says, hi, I've enjoyed your videos associated with Acoustic Guitar Magazine. I was a long-time member of the AG community before it closed. Thanks for doing this. Stay well and safe. Nice. Thanks, Edward.
Okay. Here we are. Yeah. I remember Edward. Great.
And Maury says, thanks for the great content to both of you. Now, hang on. If you've got a few more minutes, I feel terrible because I told Doug, me and Doug spoke about gear so much that I said with you I was going to focus more on the music. So I can't help myself.
All right, let's talk music.
We need to talk about music. We need to talk about the album that you recorded together because I listened to it. I love it. I love the version of Here Comes the Sun. That's awesome. So
I've got it right here.
Let's plug that. But can you tell us, so obviously you and Doug know each other. You're friends. You play together. So why did you have you made other CDs? Is this the first one you've made?
No, I have two solo CDs. One is out of print, even though it's still available online. The other one that's still around is called Postcards. That's my second solo CD. They're all on. Well, my two solo CDs you can get through CD Baby, but they're also on iTunes, Apple Music, Spotify, and everything like that. So people can definitely check those out. I appreciate that. Doug and I actually first met through our work at Acoustic Guitar. I was, an editor there, and he was a freelancer. So I would assign articles to him, and then we both hosted these fingerstyle guitar showcases here in the Bay Area for many years. So we'd invite each other to play at each other's showcase, and eventually decided that we should put a repertoire together. And so we've been playing as a duet for really several years now. But Doug's got this really nice home studio, so we finally put together the CD and used a lot of our guitars. I don't know if you saw the little video that we put together with all the guitars we used. So people can check that out. If you go to tejaanddougguitar.com, my name is Teja, so it's Teja and DougGuitar.com. There's a link to a couple of videos about the album, and there's a video where we talk about all the 12 guitars that we used.
Nice.
So it was a fun project musically because I have a lot of friends who play fingerstyle guitar, but playing with Doug, it's not always easy to work out duets. Sometimes it takes more work than other times. If you're playing with someone whose style is too similar to your own, it can be really hard to sort of not step on each other's toes and that kind of stuff. With Doug, somehow it feels pretty easy and natural to sort of come up with ways that work. And so I think the first couple of tunes we arranged, they're actually on the album. We arranged the Irish, the South Wind. We did a tune of mine, Red Air, that Doug came up with the second part. And then we just decided to kind of figure out more tunes that we could do together. And in the end, there are some tunes that we do that each one of us already played as a solo tune, and either he came up with a second part to a tune of mine or vice versa. And then there's a few tunes that we arranged specifically with the duet in mind.
No, awesome. So that's on CD Baby and also streaming services, right?
The duet record isn't on CD Baby. It's on Bandcamp and it's on Apple Music. Yeah. But you can get a physical CD or download through Bandcamp, and we're on Apple Music and Amazon and all that stuff. We're not on Spotify yet with this one, but we will be soon.
That's great. That's great, because as much as I talk about gear, it's also to remember. It's good to remember that the gear is there to make the music. And that's why it's nice to not forget those things sometimes.
Well, that's it. I mean, ultimately for me, I've worked in this sort of publishing, educational, online, print world for so long. But it really all comes down to me being a musician and a guitar player. And I've always I've always been active as a performer. I mean, the time we're in right now is really the first time that I've stopped performing in 20 some years. And that's what it comes down to is none of this would be, like I said, for example, I don't plug in, I don't amplify if I'm playing at home. It's really about playing guitar. It's not about just sort of playing with the gear. The opinions that I've formed about being a reviewer and things, that's kind of stuff that I've developed through being an artist and finding what works for me and writing music. And I've been fortunate to study with some great players in the fingerstyle world, and so that's as an artist, so the solo fingerstyle thing is the main thing that I do. And I've been fortunate to do a bit of touring and play with some great players and work with people like Doug, it's just really fun to do a project like this with. There's no egos involved. We feel like we bring equal amounts of ideas and creativity to the project, and it's just a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know you're a full-time performer as well. So you've done so much. Mm-hmm. You've done so much with writing and education and performing and online. You're one of the first YouTubers. So what would you say, or can you tell us what's the kind of highlight of what you've done? Have you got like a very fond memory that sticks in your mind?
Well, it's all kind of one big puzzle. I mean, in a way, the highlight is that I've managed to have a career in around the guitar basically my entire adult life. I've never made my living only being a player, whether it's performing or recording. I've always had other things going on, but really for 25 years, I haven't done anything that's not directly related to acoustic guitars, whether it's working for a magazine, playing. Some years, the income I've made from playing or recording has been, fairly significant. Others, it's not so much. It sort of varies. I've written music for commercial applications. I've had some stuff used in like Adobe software used a tune of mine and those kinds of things. So I have some friends that have music libraries. I've written for all these different magazines. I've done some translation work. I still do a little tiny bit of that for Acoustic Music Records in Germany. Peter Finger, who runs that, is a good friend of mine, and so I kind of it's fun to kind of still be involved with some of the projects other friends of mine are doing. Now with Peghead Nation, I do all the gear demos, and I'm sort of the in-between person between the manufacturers and our company. That's me. But I'm also a video producer now. So, most of what I do is produce these lesson videos, and I'm in the studio shooting the lessons with our artists. And I do all the editing of the lessons, and there's only 3 of us in the company, so everyone wears multiple hats. So it's all those different things. As a performer, some highlights. I got to do one of the International Guitar Night tours in Germany a few years ago. That was really great. I did a 10-day tour of Hungary with Vicky Genfan and Ian Melrose. That was really amazing. But also, I've put together and organized a lot of shows here in the Bay Area. So I've gotten to play with a lot of people who I consider to be sort of my heroes, my favorite guitar players. People like Tim Sparks and Peter Finger, and I got to open for John Renborn years ago. I've played with Alex DeGrassi. I studied with Peppino D'Agostino and Duck Baker, and all this kind of stuff that just really makes you feel like you're part of something that's really important to me. And that ultimately sort of gives me, some drive to keep slogging it through in this weird industry that there's always an element of uncertainty with all this stuff, but this is where my life is, this is where my friends are, and this is kind of what I've done for all this time. And I think the key is to sort of be flexible enough to not lock yourself into just one thing. And so I've had these different things, book projects, we haven't even talked about that, different things like that. So I've had multiple different things going on all the time, with sort of the publishing or educational thing at this point sort of being the main leg to stand on in a way.
It's certainly
financial.
It's a great thing when you can make a living doing what you love, isn't it? It really is a great thing.
Well, that's it. I mean, I work all the time, but the lines blur between what I do for me. I mean, last night I was editing a video. I don't know if you saw the little clip I posted this morning, playing While My Guitar Gently Weeps with my friend Nate Lopez, who's an amazing 8-string player, and he lives not that far away from me, but we can't get together now. So we put this little thing together, and so I was doing that last night. But I spent all day editing video for Peghead Nation, so it all sort of blurs together of what is what. But yeah, I enjoy it, and this is probably what I'll continue doing.
You said something really interesting the other day on Facebook because we're both full-time performers, and you said, how are people keeping their chops up? That's a really good question. Right. Like, I'm going live once a week to play, and that's good for my voice and my playing, but I'm not playing like I used to. I used to play 4 times a week, sometimes more. So that's a really great point. Musicians need to keep themselves, keep playing. That's a good point.
Well, yeah, and in my case, I'm not so worried about chops per se, because I can play exercises and I can play, and my physical thing may even get better because I just have more time to actually sort of practice. But it's repertoire, like remembering repertoire and not playing through a 2-hour set from time to time, because I don't make myself play through my whole set just sitting in my living room very often. But I think I'm going to have to because I don't want things to just disappear.
Maybe you should go live and do the 2 things at the same time.
Yeah, and I may eventually do it. I don't know. I've been a little gun shy about the whole live feed concert thing, I guess. But time comes. The other thing, I mean, the timing of putting out the CD with Doug. We shot those videos. I think it was March 16th, which was like the last day before sort of the lockdown happened here in California. Yeah. So and that was the day I picked up the boxes of CDs from his house. So we put the thing out, and then everything shut down, and we had a bunch of CD release shows planned and all these gigs and stuff. So my mind really, when all this started happening, really was still on, let's get this CD out. Let's play all these gigs. Let's make sure to promote that. And we've done some of it, and we've got some reviews coming in and stuff like that from people that we've heard from. But I've kind of had to do this switch from kind of thinking about this project that was coming out all the time to now what. And so I've been a little late jumping on the live feed concert thing.
And along those lines, Scott Martin says he's a big fan of yours, loved your reviews, and really loved the new album with Doug Young. So there you go.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you. We appreciate it.
There's the endorsement.
There'll be more videos coming eventually. Eventually, we'll, once things open back up, we'll shoot some things where we're actually in the same room, and find some more ways to be creative with this.
Yeah. No, it's great. Well, like I said, without what's happening, we may not have done this. So thank you for your time in doing this. It's been great for me to meet. I love meeting people that I've watched, over the years and getting to know you. And hopefully we can do some more stuff in the future. It's really great.
Sure,
and
absolutely.
Let's say,
keep in touch, and let's see you.
Oh, we're
see you on Facebook.
We're Facebook friends now, so yeah, we'll keep in touch. And thanks to everyone that watched along and for your questions. We really appreciate it. Obviously, you can subscribe to my channel right here. Ring the bell to be notified when I go live. And if they want to find more about you, Teja, I'll put your links in the description later on. But how can they find you? What's the best way?
Well, my personal website is my first and last name, tejagerken.com. I also, because no one knows how to spell my names, I have fingerpickingguitar.com, which takes you to the same website, so that's easier to remember, fingerpickingguitar.com. And then for the project with Doug, it's tejaanddoug.com, tejaanddougguitar.com, sorry. That'll take you straight to a page that's attached to my site that goes straight to info about the duo project and some videos and stuff. And so definitely more stuff to come.
That's awesome. I suggest everyone sits down tonight, listens to your album, nice glass of wine or something, and just get into the music and enjoy themselves. That'd be a nice thing to do.
And if people do want to check out Peghead Nation, this is a great time to learn more guitar. Have some time.
Yeah.
We have a code. It's play 20, and people can check it out for free for a month. So definitely encourage people to go check that out. On the guitar side, I'm teaching a course. It's an advanced fingerstyle thing with different guest hosts. We have Scott Nygaard teaching flat picking. Tony McManus is doing Celtic guitar. Stevie Coyle is doing a finger style thing. Lots of great guitar courses. So, check it out and, learn some new stuff while you're locked down these days.
Yes, it's a great time to sit and practice and write and learn new skills, definitely, and think about the future as well.
Absolutely.
What are your plans for the future? Like, are you going to keep doing what you're doing, or have you got any plans for more recordings or anything like that?
Yeah, well, now that this duet project is out, I'm going to try to focus on getting some of my solo material together again.
Right.
It's been a few years since the Postcard CD came out, and it's time. And so I'm gonna start recording some solo material. I don't think there's going to be any major changes. We're very happy with the way Peghead Nation is going, and I'm going to continue working with that and developing new content and new courses and reviewing gear and doing all those things, hoping to, once things open back up, do some more performing. Hopefully not just in the Bay Area, but I tend to do these occasional trips, whether it's going back east. I've done a bunch of shows around New England with my friend Ken Bonfield, for example. My friend Steve Davison hosts a great show in Little Rock, Arkansas that I've been on. So I do get outside of the Bay Area from time to time. Ultimately it's more of the same and just more of the same but new.
That's awesome. That's great. Well, keep doing what you're doing. We love it. Thank you for your time. Yep. Stay on the line. I'll say goodbye to you once I turn the stream off. But everyone, thanks for watching. Please tune in tomorrow. I've got the one and only CF Martin IV from Martin Guitar, Chris Martin. So I'll see you then with your questions at 4 p.m. tomorrow. Thanks, or 4 p.m. EST. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night. Be well. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.